So hello and welcome to the February 2019 edition of the Amsterdam Film Show. I'm Kathy Leung and back with us, David Swatling.
Hi, Kathy.
Cool. So as usual, we've got a review. What have you seen for us this month?
This month, well, I've seen a lot, but I'm going to talk specifically about Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Okay,
That's
good.
the name of the film.
Oh, right. I'm sure I could forgive you, whatever you've done. Brilliant. And then also we pick out some special events, film festivals. There's a lot in Amsterdam every month, and we've only got one for you today. It'll be a short show. And of course, there'll be loads and loads more, but this is the one we've picked out for you. And then we'll look at some other new releases over the month of February, and just the highlights. Again, there's loads and loads coming out, but we've picked out our favourites. So the special event that I picked out, I don't know if you're familiar with the director Wong Kar-wai.
No.
Apparently he's a bit of an auteur. He's a Hong Kong film director, and he's well known for this 2000 film from 2000, and it's called In the Mood for Love. And you know, the name Wong Kar-wai is familiar to me, but, you know, I can't associate with it with any particular film. I think he's also done something called like 2054 or something, and The Grand Master, which is more of a martial arts. This one's a bit romantic, more of a tragic romance, actually, tragic romance. And those guys at Cinema of the Damned at the OT 301 on the Overtome have picked this one out for Valentine's Day. So on Thursday, the 14th of February, Cinema of the Damned, they're screening In the Mood for Love by this Hong Kong director. The nice thing is, again, it's a foreign film with English subtitles, which you won't find in Amsterdam that often, and this particular film, so, you know, it's well worth going to, I think. I'm working till 7 o'clock that night. The film starts at 7:30, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to rush across town to get there.
It sounds worth it.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of cinema as well, the Cinema of the Damned. So you've got a kind of cozy setup, but it's all the way on top of the, you know, the kind of squatters building at the OT 301. Do you get there much?
I haven't been there in a long time, I must admit, but it hasn't changed, I'm sure.
No. So, you know, it's not like your normal cinema, and I think, you know, they really need a lot of people to go to keep it going. You know, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So I would encourage you. It's not expensive. You should check it out. They've got lots more films as well if you don't like the sound of this one. I will go and tell you a bit more about the film In the Mood for Love, I suppose, because I didn't really go into much detail. So the character Chow, played by Tony Leung, no relation, is a journalist, and Sue, Maggie Cheung, a secretary, are neighbours in a cramped Hong Kong apartment building in 1962. When they suspect their spouses of having an affair, the two strike up a furtive friendship. Though determined to stay faithful to their cheating partners, Chow and Sue soon fall deeply in love. And Wong Kar-wai's melancholy drama about doomed romance is apparently one of the most ravishing films ever made. And there we were, not knowing about it. So you've got, this is what they say on the Cinema of the Damned website. Apparently, the cinematographer's expressive use of colour and shadow creates sensuous, painterly compositions to get lost in. But it's the haunted, moving performances by the love-struck Leung and Cheung that will stay with you long after leaving the theatre. But if you watch the trailer, you certainly do get that impression, the colour, and I think also the use of light. It immediately struck me, this is very artistically done. But it's also, I think there's something to do with the period as well. Obviously, it's the film is made in the year 2000, but it's set in the 1960s. Yeah, that's kind of magical.
It sounds interesting, it does.
So that's... Oh yeah, you know, special of this screening, chocolate for all, they say. So as well as the entrance price, everyone gets a bit of chocolate.
Well, that's a happy Valentine's Day gift, indeed.
Yes. From the 21st of February, Can You Ever Forgive Me?
February is a big film month in Amsterdam because a lot of independent, smaller films that opened earlier in America, like at the end of last year, so they'd qualify for Oscars and Golden Globes and all the awards, opened then, but they didn't open here until now. And they're opening now to take advantage of the awards season because the Golden Globes just happened, the Oscars are coming up. So there's a lot to see. And I did see a lot of films in the last couple of weeks, but one that really captured my joy was a film that I didn't really know that much about. Can You Ever Forgive Me? It's a film directed by Marielle Heller, who's a director I hadn't known. Her first film, A Diary of a Teenage Girl, a few years back, was supposed to be quite good. A more well-known name associated with the film was Nicole Hollensuffer as the screenwriter, but she was originally slated to direct the film with Julianne Moore. Something happened, and Moore dropped out, and I don't know the situation. I just know I'm glad of whatever happened because the end result of what they have is fabulous. Let's see what it's about. It takes place in the elite world of literary artifacts. Doesn't that sound boring? I mean, this is why the film is off so many people's radar. It just doesn't have this ka-ching about how exciting it is. It's set in 1991 New York City. Now, this is a New York City I know very well. It's the New York City I left. It's the New York City I miss. It's the New York City I still miss even when I go back because it doesn't really exist anymore. Kind of a seedy, chic place with lots of dark little bookstores and it's just there was a special feeling about New York City then that this film really captures. The story revolves around Lee Israel, who was a B-list writer of kind of minor celebrity biographies that were pretty popular in the 70s and 80s, but have, by the time the film begins in 1991, they're no longer popular, especially these minor celebrities, really, that people haven't really heard that much of. And nobody's interested in her ideas. Her agent isn't interested in her ideas. Her agent stops taking her calls. She's got some other problems, too. She's 3 months behind with her rent. She gets fired from her copy editing job, and her cat is sick. I mean, my God, her cat is sick. And she can't scrape together enough money to pay the vet to treat her sick cat. So she's got to do something. Well, what she figures out to do, it may be a little on the unethical side, but it works. And that is, she crafts letters from people in the past and discovers, as I said at the beginning, this elite world of literary artifacts that people will pay money for a letter from Noel Coward, for instance. So she starts making these things up. And in this process, she finds a partner in crime, which is a guy named Jack Hawk, who she meets in a bar. They're both a little on the alcoholic side, to say the least. And he's kind of a charming do-nothing, played by Richard E. Grant. He's brilliant in the role. I mean, he's described as a couch-crashing Oscar Wilde. Now, I have to say, I didn't come up with that. Another reviewer came up with that. But the way that I took that and inserted it into my review, that's kind of the way that Lee Israel takes things and inserts them into letters from the celebrities so that she can make the money, because she discovers that because she's a writer herself, she can create the voices of these characters that she's writing these letters for. And what really makes the film work is Melissa McCarthy playing Lee Israel. Now, I have to say, I've never really been a fan of Melissa McCarthy's comedy films like Bridesmaids or Ghostbusters. She was okay as Sean Spicer on Saturday Night Live. But in this movie, she is really remarkable because she has this extraordinary ability to take a really nasty, misanthropic character. I mean, Lee Israel is not a nice woman. And somehow we feel for her. She finds a vulnerability in her that even if whether she's getting drunk in a bar or whether she's making fun of people behind their back, we see a little bit of the pain underneath all of that. And we feel for her. And it's really an amazing performance, so deserving of all the accolades she's gotten and nominations for awards that she's gotten. I guess part of the reason this film appealed to me, it's about a writer who writes about others until she starts writing as others. And these kind of levels and the thing is, she's better at being Noel Coward than Noel Coward was. That's what makes it really fascinating. And the fact that, it's about loneliness and alcoholism and and forging letters and all these kind of sad lives in New York City, it's still somehow a very uplifting movie. And I don't quite know how that happened, except that, yeah, it's set in a place that I love. It's about a subject that I like. And the characters are ultimately, as difficult as they might be, very, very likable. So I highly recommend Can You Ever Forgive Me? Because even if it doesn't win the top awards this year, it's definitely one of the ones worth seeing.
So, what other films are released in February 2019? Well, this one kind of sneaks in because it's released on the 31st of January. We gave it a quick mention on last month's show, but we've actually seen the film.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of these films at the PAC Festival.
And this is Green Book. What did you think?
I thought Green Book was a really entertaining movie. Considering it's got a really kind of important social message, but I'd call it kind of social light.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the concentration is on these two characters and the relationship that develops between them, and it could have gone deeper into racism in the South in the 60s, America. It's a hot button issue.
Yeah.
But they really just sort of focus on the lighter side of this road trip between these two very different characters, a mobster driver and a black classical pianist.
Yeah, and with the driver being hired then to take him on his tour, you think, you kind of know all sorts is going to kind of come about on the trip. There's drama there. But I was surprised actually by how little of the Green Book element there was in the film.
Yeah, the Green Book it's a book that was out in the 60s, suggesting where places, hotels, for instance, that only blacks could stay in, only colored people could stay in. And this is a real book that existed back then, and that's what this piano player has to use to book his tour, as it were, to figure out where to stay, because there are certain places where his chauffeur can stay that he can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it was misleading to call the film Green Book because that was quite underplayed. I mean, it was there and it was appeared and referred to, but not a big role. It was really like more Tony Lip, the driver, his family, his background and all of that. And you're right, the relationship. And very little of the drama of being on the road in the Deep South, I would say. There are instances, but very little. And so the balance of the film wasn't how I expected, given the title of the film. I think it should have been called something else. But yeah, it's a good
But it's great fun. It really. It was perfectly enjoyable to watch from beginning to end.
There were laugh out loud moments.
Absolutely,
for sure. Yeah. So that's it. That's what you might expect from the director Peter Farrelly, who's done Dumber and Dumber, for example.
I didn't realize.
Yeah. Can you believe it? A completely different kind of film. But no, entertaining. From the 14th of February, we have If Beale Street Could Talk from director Barry Jenkins.
Ah.
So he directed Moonlight, which won Oscar for Best Film. Mm-hmm. This is his follow-up movie. And it's set, again, it's a period piece. It's set in 1970s Harlem. Mm-hmm. The story, in 1970s Harlem, a young pregnant woman fights to prove the innocence of her fiancé, jailed for a violent crime and failed by a rigged system. And that's based on the novel by James Baldwin.
That's right. Now, again, we saw this one together as well at the PAC Festival.
Yeah, that's PAC Festival having 5 brilliant films in one day.
In one day, I know. It's a big day, but it was really fantastic, yeah. But what did you think of If Beale Street Could Talk?
I did like it, but I did find it very slow. I think it could have been a lot shorter. I'd just recently seen Barry Jenkins' Moonlight, and I preferred that. I think it was a bit more disciplined. Both films very well shot, but I feel this one, although it was well shot, I felt it was, a bit indulgent. There were lots of voiceovers from the lead female character, who's played by Kiki Lane, the young woman who's fighting for her fiancé. There's a lot of her talking, voicing over, and very, very slowly as well. And that got annoying after a while.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have so much narration, as an audience member, I'd prefer to listen to the audiobook, which someone told me was really great, by the way. But I agree with you. I think, I mean, I realize he's trying to follow the book, but the book's very short. It's a novella. I mean, it's only about 150 pages. So, I mean, but he seems to linger on. He loves his actors, and he lingers on their faces for so long. And I love actors, but please get the story moving. Keep the story moving.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so beautiful to look at, but that kind of beauty and that kind of pace, that lulls me right off into little nodding land.
Yes. Yeah, it's really hard because I want to recommend it, but I feel like a lot of people will get bored by it and think, why do we see it?
Yeah. I said to a friend, it's kind of, Euro art film slow. So if you like that kind of pacing in a film, no problem. It's definitely, the acting is fabulous. The writing is excellent. It looks beautiful. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to recommend it, but it's slow.
Yeah. There's a standout scene, which I think everyone is talking about it, which is really funny. And you think, if only there were more moments like that within the film.
Near the beginning, yes, with the family visiting.
Because, like, the parents of the pregnant girl are actually, I think, two of my favourite characters. So the father, he's played with I think, as an actor who's in The Wire. And then also, is it Regina King, who plays the mother of the pregnant girl. And they're both very, very good. And then the sister as well. And there's a family scene between two families, which is hilarious. But yeah, it wasn't enough of that.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's If Beale Street Could Talk from the 14th of February. From the 21st of February, we have 8th Grade, which is a drama. Now, probably most people won't have heard of these names. Director-screenwriter Bo Burnham, who's actually an actor, and Elsie Fisher, who's the young lead. So this is the story, though, of a 13-year-old American girl as she moves on from a rubbish time in middle school to high school. So that's where the 8th grade comes from, because, I'm not American. I don't automatically know what age 8th grade is.
It's 13 years old.
Yeah.
It's that middle school. I think mostly they call it middle school now, that no man's land between elementary and high school.
Yeah. Normally I would pass this one by, but you know why I picked this out? It's had 99% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I must say, I've only seen the name mentioned in passing, but it's always mentioned extremely highly regarded.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might not be the kind of film that you want to see, like a 13-year-old girl in high school, but I've watched the trailer, and it's already, I can see it's speaking to, the whole Instagram culture, and it's a whole different world. I mean, I thought school was pressurized, there's all sorts of, internal politics and pressure to, on your appearance and your identity and self-esteem. But now I wonder, by seeing this trailer and you seeing it's very image-based, even more so with the phones and Instagram and stuff, whether it is a bit harder. But this, you can see very clearly in the film those pressures that she's going under. And it's very well played. You can see that poor girl, she's putting that across very well already in the trailer. So I think it looks good. And, these are new names as well, which is exciting.
Exactly.
From the 28th of February, an entirely different film, Peterloo, a historical epic. It's from director Mike Leigh. Oh,
I saw a little bit about this on BBC. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Have you seen anything by Mike Leigh before?
Yes, I've seen it. He is a great director to work with actors, because he actually develops his scripts with the actors in improvisational ways.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he's famous for that technique. And I think, in a certain sense, he does a little bit of that in this as well. That's what I got from the piece, even though it's a period piece. But
he's got some good actors. Rory Kinnear is a British actor who's not really well known because he's hardly ever had a leading role in any film. But I think he's quite key in this, Rory Kinnear. But I think it'll probably be an ensemble cast, really. It's 2 hours and 34 minutes because it's covering this epic period. It's the Peterloo Massacre, a peaceful protest in Manchester in 1819 leads to bloodshed when British armed forces attack the crowd. And apparently this is quite a defining moment in British history that I had never heard of. Apparently one of the kind of touch points of modern democracy. It helped found the Guardian newspaper in Manchester and stuff. But again, yeah, it was totally not in my education that this happened, which might be something because, because of that element of the government turning on its own people and, democratic protest. Maybe that's why they didn't cover it in my school curriculum. I tried to see Mr. Turner by this director, Mike Leigh, which was about Turner, the painter.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
I pretty much fell asleep. So it's difficult because it's like a good story, good actors, good cast, and he's well renowned. I mean, I loved Secrets and Lies, but I think he has got, and with a 2.5 hour film, I think he can go on a bit. From the 28th of February too, we have Vice.
Go from the British history to American history.
And you've seen this one?
Yes, yeah, I did see Vice, and Vice is it's a biopic, sort of, about Dick Cheney, who was most recently, in terms of the news, the Vice President of the United States under Bush Jr. But actually, this tracks his career all the way back to when he was a rowdy, I don't know what I want to do kind of teenager, and he started in Washington as an intern to a congressman. Dick Cheney as an intern, who's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then just follows how, with the definite help of his wife, brilliantly played by Amy Adams, Liz Cheney, she's almost Machiavellian in the way that she maneuvers him into his career. And Dick Cheney is played unrecognizably by Christian Bale. And, the two of them are fascinating to watch. And it's actually a film full, if you don't know anything about Dick Cheney, except his name, he really is responsible in many ways, at least if you believe everything that's in this film, for the way America is now. And I'm not talking about the good stuff. I'm talking about the bad stuff. You could all trace all these things back to Dick Cheney. It's a satire about politics in America. I'm not really a fan of politics in America. And these days, satire and politics are almost synonymous, in real life. So it's a weird mix, but it does move quite quickly along, and the performances are great. And it is about a very specific behind-the-scenes kind of chapter of American history that you may not know so much about as you thought.
Yeah, and I get the feeling from what you've told me, because Vice, and you hear it's about a historical figure and stuff, biopic, it's fairly recent. I'm thinking there was LBJ recently and, and things like that. But this sounds really different, actually, because the director as well, he was the director, Adam McKay, for Anchorman and Step Brothers.
Yeah, well, this one has some wild stuff. For as an example, at one point, there's sort of a voiceover that says, now, we don't exactly know why Cheney decided to accept the vice presidency, to run as vice president. There's no Shakespearean monologue or scene that goes into the depths of how that decision happened. But maybe, and suddenly we're in bed with Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, and they are basically doing a scene out of Macbeth in Shakespearean iambic pentameter about why he should be doing what he's doing. So it's wacky at times.
Kind of playful.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
And that's at the end of the month on the 28th of February. So those are the kind of new releases, the highlights, a film review for you, Can You Ever Forgive Me, and a film event at the Cinema of the Damned. That's all we've got for you in the February 2019 edition of the Amsterdam Film Show. Thank you, David Swatling.
Thanks for having me, Kathy.
And we'll see you or hear you next month.